What if Count Dooku was captured by the end of Attack of the Clones? What would happen then? Let's find out. So in this timeline where Count Dooku is captured, several things happened that deviated significantly from the original timeline. Here, the attempt on Padme Amidala's life was actually successful, which led to Anakin going to Tatooine earlier and saving his mother. And at that point in the story, Anakin received a transmission from Obi Wan saying he's going to Kamino, after which, having saved his mother from the Tuscans, Anakin too goes to Kamino. And from there, together, Obi Wan and Anakin tracked Jango Fett to Geonosis and actually managed to leave Geonosis after finding out about the droid army being built there. And following their escape from Geonosis, Anakin and Obi Wan arrived at Coruscant and informed the Chancellor and the Jedi Council of the droid army being built on Geonosis and the clone army present on Kamino. And as a result, Palpatine, who by this point had attained emergency powers, approves the use of the clone army, and then the Jedi, with their clones, attack Geonosis. And here, unlike in the original timeline, Obi-Wan and Anakin would attack Dooku together, and ultimately, with Master Yoda's help, they would manage to capture Count Dooku. And now, with all that being said, let's see how Dooku's capture would alter the fate of the galaxy. So Dooku, after being captured and being brought to Coruscant, wouldn't reveal anything to the Jedi, still remaining loyal to Sidious and their cause. Upon being questioned, Dooku would simply tell Obi-Wan that he told him everything he had to say on Geonosis. And as for the Death Star plans that Dooku had with him, he would manage to destroy them when he was sure that he was going to get captured. But anyways, despite Dooku's capture, the Clone Wars itself still needed to happen, so Sidious and Grievous would end up leading the Separatist Alliance themselves, without Dooku's help. Which, as you will see soon enough, led to the Clone Wars going in an entirely different direction. And the reason for this was General Grievous, while being a fearsome presence on the battlefield, lacked Dooku's political acumen and diplomatic finesse. This changed for Supreme Chancellor Palpatine, secretly Darth Sidious, to take a more active role in orchestrating the war. And as the first year of the Clone Wars raged on in this manner, many things deviated from the original timeline. Battles were more brutal, less strategic, with the Separatist Alliance relying increasingly on overwhelming force rather than cunning tactics. And as a result, the Jedi Order found it easier to adapt to this style of warfare. And in the midst of all this chaos, Anakin Skywalker, Jedi Knight at this point, was assigned to Gruda Padawan, Ahsoka Tano. Their partnership, initially met with skepticism due to Anakin's unorthodox methods, soon flourished into a formidable team. And that, combined with Padme Amidala not being present in his life, Anakin's path took a different turn in this timeline. However, Anakin's relationship with Chancellor Palpatine more or less remained the same, with Palpatine slowly planting the seeds of doubt and ambition in the young Jedi's mind, just like in the original timeline, although here it would be a little less successful. And also, unlike in the original timeline, here Sidious's plans would be met with a very serious hurdle not too long into the war. Because as the Clone Wars continued to fracture the galaxy, Naboo emerged as a critical battleground, with tensions mounting between its surface dwellers and the Gungans. Rumors emerged that the Gungans are conspiring with the Separatists to launch an assault on Theed, the capital of Naboo. Anyways, as a result of this, Anakin Skywalker, along with Obi-Wan Kenobi and Ahsoka Tano, were dispatched to Naboo to address this looming crisis. So side note, something similar happens in the original timeline as well, but there, Anakin and Padme are sent to resolve the issue, instead of Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka. Anyways, upon arriving in Theed, the Jedi would find out through Jar Jar Binks, who by the way is still the representative of the Gungans in the Republic Senate, that the disturbing rumors about the Gungans, or their leader Boss Leone, siding with the Separatists, are true. And then following this revelation by Jar Jar, the Jedi, along with Jar Jar, head on over to Odo Gunga, the Gungan city where they find Boss Leone, the leader of the Gungans, rallying his troops for an attack on Theed under the influence of his minister, Rish Lu. However, the Jedi would soon realize that something is off with Leone's behavior. And quite quickly, just like in the original timeline, the Jedi would discover that Boss Leone is being mind-controlled by a necklace given by his minister, Rish Lu. Anakin then uses the Force to remove the necklace, freeing Leone from Lu's influence. However, in the ensuing confrontation, Lu unleashes a squad of commando droids on the Jedi and stabs Leone, leaving him incapacitated. But unlike in the original timeline, here, Lu would be killed by Anakin before he could escape. And then, following this, with Leone unconscious and unable to command, Jar Jar Binks accidentally dons Leone's crown and is mistaken for the Gungan leader due to their striking resemblance. And also, just like in the original timeline, Anakin and here Obi Wan decide to use this to their advantage, having Jar Jar continue the impersonation to prevent the Gungan army from marching on Theed. Meanwhile, General Grievous, delegated by Sidious to oversee Richelieu's plan, arrives on Naboo. So side note, in the original timeline it was Count Dooku who was behind Richelieu, but in this timeline Count Dooku is captured, so Sidious ends up assigning Grievous to oversee the whole thing. Anyways, Grievous, expecting to lead a coordinated assault with the Gungans, is met by Jar Jar, disguised as Leone. Jar Jar then enters a meeting with Grievous. And though scared, this act by Jar Jar buys time for Anakin, Ahsoka, and Obi Wan to implement their plan to isolate Grievous by disabling his droid forces that were with him. And eventually, as Grievous became increasingly suspicious of Leone's behavior, he uncovered the deception, that he wasn't actually speaking with Leone. However, by this point, it was too late for the cyborg general, because soon after figuring out that he was being played, Grievous was met with a surprise attack led by Anakin, Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, and the Gungan forces. And to make matters worse, Grievous would also find that his droid forces had been deactivated, leaving him alone to defend himself, and with no way to run away. The Jedi, along with the Gungan forces, then engaged Grievous in battle. The combined might of the Jedi and the Gungan army proved overwhelming for Grievous and his 4 lightsabers. Despite his formidable combat skills, Grievous found himself outmaneuvered and ultimately captured. So side note, this happens in the original timeline as well, but Dooku was able to get Grievous out of the mess he got himself into, but that won't be happening here. Anyways, with General Grievous captured on Naboo, a major victory for the Republic would unfold. Under interrogation, Grievous would try not to say anything, but the Jedi's powers would prove too much for the cyborg. And just like Cad Bane, under the Jedi's mind probing, Grievous would reveal all he knew about his leader Darth Sidious, whose identity he never knew, and also the location of key Separatist leaders, the likes of Newt Gunray and Commander Trench, to name a few examples. And this will lead to a series of strategic raids by Republic forces. This swift action by the Republic, as a result of Grievous's help, would result in the decimation of the Separatist leadership and a consequent deactivation of the droid armies across the galaxy. And so, the Clone Wars, which had ravaged countless systems, would come to an abrupt, unexpected, anticlimactic and strange end in this timeline. All thanks to Jar Jar and the Gungans. So meanwhile, Chancellor Palpatine, or Darth Sidious, found himself in a precarious position. His meticulously laid plans for galactic domination were in jeopardy. And also, with the Separatists defeated and the war over, the Galactic Senate, or at least a good portion of it, began to call for Chancellor Palpatine to give up his emergency powers, which Palpatine, maintaining his facade of a concerned and benevolent leader, did. He relinquished his emergency powers while still maintaining position as the Supreme Chancellor of the galaxy. Also, one thing that went in Palpatine's favor would be many in the Senate and the Republic arguing that in order to keep themselves safe, the Republic does need a standing army, and that the creation of the clones should continue. And Palpatine would of course agree to this, and so the clones would stay around, as with the possibility of executing Order 66. However, with the immediate threat of the Separatists gone, and with most of the Jedi back on Coruscant, Palpatine realized that he needed to engineer a new conflict to further his ultimate goal of establishing the Galactic Empire. And as luck would have it, very soon, a new opportunity would present itself before Palpatine due to his old apprentice, Maul. So not long after the Clone Wars ended, Mandalore, just like in the original timeline, became the focal point of galactic tension. And this was due to Darth Maul and Savage Opress, with Darth Maul defeating Pre Vizsla in combat and claiming the Darksaber, and with it, the mantle of Mandalore's leadership. His rule was met with resistance, however, particularly from Bo-Katan Kryze, who refused to accept a non-Mandalorian as their ruler. And with some like-minded Mandalorians, Bo-Katan formed a resistance, setting the stage for a civil war on Mandalore. So suffice to say, the situation on Mandalore was pretty volatile. This happens in the original timeline as well. But what would again deviate heavily from the original timeline here would be the fate of Satine Kryze. So, Duchess Satine Kryze, the former leader of Mandalore and Obi-Wan Kenobi's friend, managed to send a message to the Jedi, pleading for assistance. And despite the Jedi Council's reluctance to intervene in what they saw as an internal Mandalorian affair, Obi-Wan, driven by his sense of duty and personal feelings for Satine, decided to act. In the original timeline, Obi-Wan went to Mandalore alone, but here, due to the completely different circumstances, Anakin Skywalker, sharing a strong bond with his former master and understanding the stakes involved, decided to join him in this unsanctioned mission. And so, soon enough, the two Jedi stealthily arrived on Mandalore and embarked on a daring rescue operation. The two Jedi disguised themselves as Mandalorians, and using this disguise, they eventually managed to rescue Satine from her captors. However, despite their successful rescue and extraction of Satine, Mandalore remained firmly under Maul's grip. So the only difference here is that, unlike in the original timeline, Satine is rescued from Mandalore. But where it deviates more significantly in the original timeline is what happens next. So in the original timeline, after Maul takes over Mandalore, Sidious pays him a personal visit, kills Savage Opress, and takes Maul prisoner, because Sidious saw Maul as a rival at that point. But in this alternate timeline, Sidious senses an opportunity in this chaos, and because of this, in this alternate timeline, Palpatine or Sidious went to Mandalore and approached Maul with a proposition that deviated significantly from the original timeline. Instead of confronting and defeating Maul, Sidious offered to reinstate him as his Sith apprentice. Sidious does this because at this point he sees no other option to take his plan forward, and Maul, aware of Palpatine's cunning, yet seeing an opportunity for greater power, cautiously accepted Sidious's offer. Savage Opress, Maul's brother, however, remained deeply distrustful of Palpatine, sensing the Sith Lord's deeper, more sinister intentions. Anyways, following Maul's acceptance of Sidious's offer, Sidious, with a voice as cold as the void of space, addressed Maul. "Lord Maul, your rise as the leader of Mandalore presents us with an unprecedented opportunity. The time has come to cast the galaxy into chaos once again." Maul, holding the darksaber with a steady grip, responded with a nod of curiosity. "What do you command, my master?" Sidious's eyes glinted with a manipulative glimmer as he outlined his plan. "You will rally the Mandalorian systems and your other allies to wage war against the Republic. They are weakened and fractured from the Clone Wars, unprepared for more conflict." Hearing this, Maul's eyes flickered with understanding and ambition. "The Mandalorians yearn for battle, and they will eagerly follow my lead to war," Maul said. Sidious then revealed more of his insidious plot. "This war you will unleash will serve as a diversion, a grand spectacle to blind the Republic and the Jedi from our true intentions. Under the guise of this conflict, we will extend our reach from the shadows and prepare to seize control over the entire galaxy." Hearing Sidious say this, Maul noted, his mind racing with strategies. "I will marshal our forces. The Republic will not know what hit them. Mandalore will lead this crusade against the Republic's faltering might." Sidious, pleased with Maul's resolve, added, "Remember, Lord Maul, this war is but a means to an end. Our ultimate goal is to shatter the Republic and the Jedi and establish a new order ruled by the Sith." Sidious then went over many aspects of his plan, but as always, Sidious kept his true intentions hidden from Maul. Sidious does feel that Maul is a rival even in this timeline, but given the circumstances, Sidious saw no other option than to create another war with the help of Darth Maul. As for Maul, he too of course knew that Sidious was simply using him as nothing more than another tool. But Maul craved for more power and believed that he could outsmart his old master, and so he decided to go along with Sidious's plan, at least for the time being. And on top of that, Maul also knew that he and Savage were not strong enough to defeat Sidious, so Maul didn't have much of a choice here than to join Sidious. So not long after, a new Mandalorian war erupted across the galaxy. With Maul's strategic genius, his allies like the Hutts, the Pike Syndicate, and the Black Sun, along with the Mandalorians' fierce combat prowess, making them a formidable adversary to the Republic. And so, because of Sidious's machinations, the Republic again found itself dragged into war. And in the heart of the Republic, in the Grand Senate Chamber, Chancellor Palpatine played his part flawlessly, rallying the galactic populace against the threat posed by Mandalore and his allies. Under his guidance, the Republic military prepared for war again. Many in the Senate would also applaud Palpatine's decision to keep the clone army around, because had the clone army been decommissioned after the Clone Wars, the Republic wouldn't have an army to defend itself against Mandalore. So this would gain Palpatine a lot more support in the Senate, and would also help quiet many of the voices that were against him. And so the Mandalorian War began, with the Jedi again leading the clones against not only Mandalorians but also the Pikes, Black Sun, and the Hutts. And then, amidst this growing conflict, Palpatine contacted Maul for a clandestine meeting. Palpatine discussed many things in this meeting, but mainly, Palpatine told Maul the following. "Lord Maul, the time has come to execute the final phase of our plan. Invite the Jedi to Mandalore under the guise of peace negotiations. This will be the perfect opportunity for you to expose my true identity to the Jedi and manipulate the fools into attacking Supreme Chancellor Palpatine. Maul, understanding the depth of Sidious's machinations, agreed. As you wish, Master, the Jedi will fall into our trap, and the Republic will see them as traitors, Maul responded, letting Sidious know that he is aware of what Sidious is most likely trying to accomplish here. Anyways, later, on Mandalore, Maul, following Sidious's orders, extended an invitation to the Jedi Council for negotiations, an offer that would be cautiously accepted, because Maul would have stated that he was only willing to negotiate with Jedi and no one else, which led to suspicions in many of the Republic's upper echelons. But despite this, hoping to end the war, Yoda, Mace Windu, Shakti, and Obi Wan went to Mandalore representing the Jedi Council to meet with Maul for negotiations. And later, as the Jedi Council representatives stood before Maul in the Grand Hall of Sundari, the atmosphere was charged with a mix of suspicion and cautious hope. Maul, standing cautiously with the darksaber in his hand, initiated the talks with a direct address to Master Yoda. Master Yoda, for years now, the Jedi and Sith have danced around each other, but today I offer you a truth that could change the course of the galaxy, Maul began, his voice carrying a weight of sincerity mixed with malice. Yoda, wise and unmoved, replied, "Speak, you will, but deceive us, you cannot. See through lies, we can." Maul nodded, acknowledging Yoda's wisdom. "Indeed, Master Yoda. Then you'll see the truth in my words. Chancellor Palpatine, the very heart of your republic, is none other than Darth Sidious, my former master and the mastermind behind all of our suffering." A murmur ran through the Jedi Assembly, but it was Obi Wan who stepped forward, his past with Maul making him both wary and deeply invested in the revelation. "Maul, your words are a heavy accusation. What evidence do you bring to support them?" Maul would of course have no problem presenting evidence because Sidious himself had instructed Maul to do this. With a flick of his hand, Maul activated a holoprojector, displaying classified communications, recordings of Sidious orchestrating the war and holographic meetings between Sidious and various separatist leaders. "Here is your evidence, Kenobi. Not only was I privy to my master's plans, but I have also been a pawn in his grand scheme. You've been fighting in the shadows while the true enemy has sat among you, guiding the Republic to its doom." The Jedi absorbed everything Maul presented with shock and realization. Maul's words, "How could you have been so blind?" echoed hauntingly in the chamber. Maul then continued, "I know well the nature of the Sith. Betrayal is in our blood. Sidious intends to discard me, as he has others before, but I refuse to be a footnote in his rise to power. With your help, I can destroy Sidious before he enacts his final plan." And before any of the other Jedi could speak, Mace Windu responded to Maul. "And what do you propose?" Mace Windu asked, skepticism lacing his voice. "A temporary alliance," Maul proposed. "Help me remove Sidious from power. In return, I will ensure the new Mandalorian war ends. Once Sidious is gone, you will leave Mandalore to me. I seek only to rule my people, not to continue this endless conflict across the stars." Mace Windu's skepticism was evident as he considered Maul's words. "And how do we know this isn't another layer of Sidious's manipulation? What assurance do we have that you won't turn on us at the critical moment?" Maul's expression then turned grave. "Because, Master Windu, Sidious himself orchestrated this meeting. He ordered me to invite you under the guise of peace negotiations and to reveal his identity as Darth Sidious. He anticipates your every move." Hearing this, the council members exchanged troubled looks, the weight of Maul's revelation settling over them like a shroud. Obi-Wan again stepped forward, his voice steady yet filled with concern. "And if we take this evidence to the Senate to expose Palpatine as Sidious?" Maul shook his head, a bitter smile touching his lips. "Palpatine has the Senate in his grasp. After leading the Republic to victory in the Clone Wars, his influence is unassailable. There is nothing we could say that would convince the fools in the Republic's Senate that Palpatine is Sidious." The Jedi Council then fell silent, the enormity of their predicament dawning on them. They realized that they were caught in a web of deception so intricate that every move seemed anticipated by their adversary. "Then what course of action remains to us?" Shakti asked, her voice tinged with frustration. Maul leaned forward, his eyes glinting with a mix of defiance and cunning. "Sidious expects us to play into his hands, to react predictably, but we can use this anticipation against him. We must act in a way he cannot foresee, use the element of surprise to our advantage. And how do we do that? Obi-Wan interrupted. Maul's eyes then swept across the room, capturing the attention of each Jedi Council member with a serious gaze. I have devised a plan, one that even Sidious might not anticipate, a strategy that will unfold in due time, and when it does, the galaxy will feel its impact. Obi-Wan, ever the skeptic, pressed further. And what is this plan, Maul? How can we prepare for something we know nothing about? Maul's demeanor shifted. A flicker of fear passing through his eyes, quickly masked by determination. I cannot divulge the specifics, not here, not now. There's a risk Sidious might be listening in ways we cannot anticipate. The dark side is with him, making it dangerous for us to speak openly of our intentions. Yoda, sensing the undercurrent of fear in Maul, nodded slowly. Sense your fear we do, Maul. A dangerous path, this is. Be prepared, Jedi. I do not know how exactly, but if you don't let go of your arrogance, Sidious will destroy you. All of you, Maul reiterated, pointing at the Jedi Masters before him, his voice carrying a weight of urgency. When the moment arrives, you will know. Yoda frowned, the strategic implications running through his mind. Prepare we will, but on trust alone this alliance hangs. A thin thread, it seems. Maul acknowledged Yoda's sentiment with a nod. Trust is a rare commodity in these times, yet I assure you, when my plan is set in motion, the benefit to us all will be undeniable. The Jedi Council, though wary, recognized the necessity for action. With the fate of the galaxy at stake and the dark shadow of Sidious looming, the Jedi had little choice but to prepare for an unknown battle. As the meeting concluded, the Jedi dispersed, each member lost in thought over the forthcoming conflict. The alliance with Maul was fraught with uncertainty, but it presented a chance to end Sidious's tyranny once and for all. And later, after arriving at the temple, the Jedi Council, all members of it, those not on Coruscant via holograms, met in secrecy to plan their next moves. Also, since no one outside the council was made privy to the revelations on Mandalore, Anakin Skywalker at this point knows nothing of it. Anyways, in this meeting, Master Yoda was the first to express his unease. The Sith have been plotting in the shadows for over a millennium. Proceed with caution, we must. A direct assault on Palpatine, do more harm than good it will. The council members understood the depths of Yoda's wisdom. The intricate web woven by the Sith required a careful and precise approach to dismantle. Mace Windu, always a voice of strategy, pointed out the following. Maul's information, though valuable, comes with its risks, yet we cannot afford to ignore it. Sidious's reach has indeed infiltrated deeper into the Republic than we feared, touching the Senate, the judiciary, and even its military. Also, side note, do keep in mind that Maul never knew of Order 66 until it was executed, so even at this point, neither Jedi nor Maul would have any way to find out about that. Anyways, as their meeting went on, it became clear to the Jedi Council members that, like Maul said, going after Sidious or Palpatine through the Senate or directly would both be things the Dark Lord has planned for. And then breaking the silence, Ki-Adi-Mundi highlighted a critical concern. Acting on Maul's intelligence might be exactly what Sidious wants. However, inaction would allow his machinations to proceed unchecked, the Jedi Master said. Hearing this, Obi-Wan Kenobi shared his insight, focusing on the personal vendetta Maul held against Sidious. While we cannot fully trust Maul, we shouldn't underestimate his desire to see Sidious fall. This personal vendetta could be leveraged to our advantage. Master Yoda, after a moment of contemplation, said the following. The future is cloudier than ever, yet it is clear that Sidious's reign must end. The path to achieving this remains to be discovered. But unfortunately, their discussions on the matter would have to wait because the Jedi Council needed to submit a report on their negotiations with Maul, and they had to present this report to the Supreme Chancellor, Palpatine. And so, not long after their short meeting, Yoda, Obi-Wan, Mace, and Shakti went to the Chancellor's office to deliver their findings on Mandalore. The conversation would have looked normal to an outsider, but the Jedi at this point know that Palpatine is Sidious, and Sidious knows that the Jedi knows this. But in this situation, neither could act without the other making the first move. So, with this silent understanding in their minds, Yoda would tell Palpatine that Maul said he would accept nothing short of a complete surrender to stop the bloodshed. Hearing this, Palpatine's expression remained composed, though a hint of surprise flickered in his eyes. Surrender to him, you say? This is a most audacious demand. What do the Jedi Council propose in response to this? Sidious asked. Mace Windu, maintaining a stern demeanor, replied, Chancellor, we understand the gravity of the situation. Surrendering to Maul is not a viable option for the Republic. However, we believe that through diplomatic negotiations, we can find a way to avoid further destruction. Hearing this, Palpatine nodded, his eyes betraying no hint of his true intentions. I trust in the wisdom of the Jedi Order to handle this delicate matter with care. The Republic must not bow to the demands of extremists. Continue negotiations, and may the Force guide you towards a peaceful end to all of this, Palpatine said. The conversation then continued, with both parties dancing around the unspoken truth of Palpatine's dual identity. The Jedi spoke of peace and the need for continued vigilance, while Palpatine emphasized the Republic's reliance on the Jedi for stability. Anyways, not long after this, the meeting ended. Following with the Jedi walked out of Palpatine's office. For a moment, Yoda turned around to look at the Sith, and the 900-year-old master saw nothing out of the ordinary. What met Yoda's gaze was an old man who had a look of concern on his face. And so the meeting between the Sith and the Jedi ended, with neither having made a move to destroy the other just yet. Also, following the meeting, Obi-Wan, despite the Council not wanting it, spoke with Anakin. Obi-Wan knew how close Anakin was to the Chancellor and figured that Anakin should not be kept in the dark on what was going on, as it could land Anakin in danger, Obi-Wan figured. Anakin, there is something we need to discuss, Obi-Wan began, his voice betraying a hint of urgency. What is it, Master? Anakin responded, sensing the gravity of Obi-Wan's tone. Obi-Wan hesitated, knowing the information he was about to share could shatter Anakin's trust in one of the most influential figures in his life. But, despite this, Obi-Wan continued. It's about the Chancellor, and what we've discovered on Mandalore. Hearing this, Anakin's expression shifted from concern to confusion. The Chancellor? What about him? Anakin asked. Following this, Obi-Wan recounted the events on Mandalore to Anakin, explaining how Maul revealed Chancellor Palpatine's true identity as Darth Sidious, the Sith Lord they have been searching for. Obi-Wan then went on to describe the evidence that Maul provided, the strategic manipulation of the galaxy, and the delicate position the Jedi now found themselves in. Anakin listened to all this in disbelief, and having heard all this, said the following. That's impossible, Obi-Wan. Maul is trying to deceive us. He is trying to destroy the Republic from within by causing distrust between us and the Senate. Obi-Wan, understanding Anakin's skepticism, responded, I knew you'd find it hard to believe. I struggled with it myself, but the evidence Maul provided is undeniable. We've seen the manipulations, the orchestration of war. Anakin, you need to see past the persona Palpatine has presented to us and consider the possibility that the Sith may have been hiding right before us. The conflict within Anakin was immense. He respected Obi-Wan, yet his loyalty to Palpatine, who had been a guiding figure in his life, made him resistant to the idea. How can we be sure Maul isn't playing us? This could be another one of his tricks, Anakin argued, grappling with the revelation. Obi-Wan then placed a hand on Anakin's shoulder, a gesture of solidarity. I understand your doubt, Anakin, but consider everything we've observed. The Chancellor's push for extended powers, his unusual interest in the Jedi, particularly you. This is not about discrediting a mentor, but about facing a harsh truth for the sake of the galaxy. The mention of Palpatine's interest in him made Anakin pause. He recalled moments when Palpatine's advice seemed subtly aimed at driving a wedge between him and the Jedi, and this realization forced seeds of doubt to take root within Anakin's mind. Think about it, Anakin. Who stood to gain the most from the Clone Wars? Who was positioned to accumulate unprecedented power? Obi-Wan pressed, hoping to break through Anakin's initial denial. The logic of Obi-Wan's argument, coupled with his own uneasy feelings about certain decisions Palpatine had made, started to erode Anakin's disbelief. The pieces of a puzzle he hadn't realized were scattered before him began to form a picture that was unsettling. If what you say is true, what are we going to do? Anakin asked Obi-Wan, the reality of the situation beginning to dawn on him. Obi-Wan sighed, a mixture of relief and sorrow in his eyes. The Council is devising a plan, Anakin, but we must tread carefully. And Anakin, I must ask you to be wary of the Chancellor. Anakin didn't say anything to this, simply nodding in response. And this would bring a small amount of peace to Obi-Wan, but from this point on, Obi-Wan kept his former apprentice close by as much as he could, just to make sure that Palpatine doesn't try anything. As for Ahsoka Tano, Anakin's apprentice, she too stayed close by. Anakin wouldn't tell Ahsoka what Obi-Wan told him, but they would have a discussion on how Anakin believes that things are not what they seem. Anyways, a little while later, in the quiet of the Jedi Council chambers, Mace Windu, Yoda, Obi-Wan, and now Anakin convened to deliberate their precarious situation. Obi-Wan broke the silence, expressing concern over the reliance on Maul's plan, which remained shrouded in ambiguity. We must acknowledge the risks of depending too heavily on Maul. His intentions, while seemingly aligned with ours, are ultimately self-serving, Obi-Wan said. And Anakin, still wrestling with the shock of Obi-Wan's revelations about Palpatine, added the following. And what if Maul's plans played directly into Sidious's hands? We could be walking into a trap we cannot escape. And hearing all this, Mace Windu, realizing how they were discussing the same things again and again, suggested a radical course of action. We may need to consider taking control of the Republic ourselves. If Sidious is indeed Palpatine, the Senate may be compromised beyond redemption. Our primary duty is to protect the galaxy, even if it means stepping into a role we haven't filled for a millennia. So side note, 1,000 years before the Clone Wars, the position of Supreme Chancellor was always held by a Jedi. Anyways, at Mace's words, a heavy silence fell over the room. The notion of the Jedi Council assuming control over the Republic was fraught with moral and ethical implications, challenging the very principles the Jedi stood by. Yoda, who had been listening intently, closed his eyes, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. After a long pause, the Grand Master spoke, his voice heavy with foreboding. "Consider carefully we must. This can be a path to darkness. The Jedi, protectors we are, not rulers. And yet, if the Sith controls the Republic, we cannot protect it as we have." So side note, the Jedi being able to take over the Republic is something that Palpatine himself talks about in the Plagueis novel. The following is what Palpatine says specifically. "Weakening the Republic without weakening the Jedi could provide them with justification for a coup. They have the numbers to succeed." Palpatine says this to Darth Plagueis in the book, so the Republic is weak in this timeline. And if the Jedi were to try, they could overthrow the Senate, which, like Palpatine, Mace Windu and the other Jedi knew. But as it turned out, the Jedi wouldn't have to take such a drastic measure just yet, because as they were having this discussion, all the Masters received an extremely urgent transmission that had to do with planetary security. Apparently, fleets of ships had exited hyperspace over Coruscant, and they seemed to be there for a ground assault on the capital of the Republic. Anyway, soon enough, these forces were identified to be those of Mandalorians, Pikes, Hutts, and the Black Sun, all of whom Maul controlled by the time he had gained control of Mandalore. And hearing this, the Jedi Masters realized what was possibly happening. Yoda was the first one to say it out loud. This was his plan, it seems. So what's happening here is that Maul, having figured that going along with Sidious's plan would most likely lead to his doom, decided to rally all his forces and launch an attack at Sidious himself. Every other plan Maul thought of only led to him being destroyed by Sidious's hand. So in the end, Maul decided that if he was going to go down, he might as well take Sidious with him. And Maul of course couldn't share this plan with the Jedi, because Maul believed that the Jedi would not see reason and would never agree to this. But now Maul had essentially forced the Jedi to take on Sidious with him. Anyway, soon enough, Maul's forces made their way towards the Senate building, much like Grievous in the original timeline. And soon, Maul's forces, specifically the Mandalorian Super Commandos, were attacking the Senate building, making their way over to Palpatine's office, led by Maul and Savage Opress. Maul, of course, did not know how this crazy plan would turn out, but the way Maul saw it, it was either this or letting Sidious destroy him, like he did with many. Meanwhile, back at the Jedi Temple, as the situation on Coruscant escalated rapidly, the Jedi Council received an unexpected transmission from Maul. As the Council members watched, the hologram flickered to life, revealing Maul flying by Savage Opress and the elite Mandalorian commandos. The urgency in Maul's voice was evident as he addressed the Jedi Masters. "Jedi," Maul began, his gaze piercing through the hologram. "The time has come for us to end this. Together, we have a chance to defeat Sidious here and now. My forces have entered the Senate building, and we are close to confronting Sidious." Sensing the lack of trust the Jedi had in him, Maul spoke again. "Trust is not a luxury we can afford at this moment, but know this, I seek vengeance against Sidious, not just for my own sake, but for the galaxy's. This is our best shot to rid the galaxy of his tyranny. My only aim is to see Sidious fall. Join me, Jedi, and together we can end his reign of manipulation and fear. This is what I offer. If I fail, he will destroy you and the Republic." I say that, Jedi, because Sidious's plan was always to make you look like traitors, and he will achieve that, regardless of whether you help me or not. He will convince the Senate that we were in this together. You had to submit a report on our meeting before the Senate, didn't you? And you had to lie in that report, didn't you, Jedi? That's all Sidious would need to turn the Republic against you. He will destroy you. I apologize for putting you in this position, Jedi, but ultimately, our enemy is the same, and he needs to be destroyed. I do hope you make the right choice, Masters, Maul said before ending the transmission. Having heard all this, Obi Wan asked Yoda the following: "What should we do, Master?" Meanwhile, after making the transmission to the Jedi, Maul and his forces were effortlessly making their way through the Coruscant Guard towards Chancellor Palpatine. And as he made his way through the grand corridor of the Senate building, Maul's mind was consumed not just with the strategy of the imminent confrontation, but with a deep, burning need for retribution against Sidious. Every step closer to Palpatine's office intensified the memories of abandonment and the agony Sidious had inflicted upon him. Maul's thoughts were a whirlwind of vengeance and pain. Sidious had not only discarded him as if he were nothing, but had also been the architect of his deepest sufferings. Or at least, that is what Maul believed. And as far as Maul was concerned in this moment, his purpose was crystal clear: to destroy Darth Sidious. This was not about seizing power or altering the course of the galaxy. Instead, it was deeply personal for Maul. Sidious had turned Maul's life into a living nightmare, and now the Sith Lord would pay for his betrayal. Yet, amidst the storm of vengeance, a sliver of doubt crept in. Would the Jedi heed his calls to arms? Maul quickly dismissed the thought. While the Jedi support would have bolstered his chances, he resolved that, with or without them, Sidious's tyranny must end. Maul knew that facing Sidious alone was a daunting task, but the possibility of death was a small price to pay to rid the galaxy and himself of Sidious's dark shadow. As Maul approached the Chancellor's office, flanked by Savage Opress and his elite commandos, Maul's resolve hardened. This was the moment his entire life had led up to. Every betrayal, every battle, every loss had prepared him for this. Sidious would no longer control his destiny, or the destiny of the galaxy. Today, Maul would either become the instrument of Sidious's downfall or die trying. Maul's mind, once clouded by the pain Sidious had caused, was now focused singularly on the task at hand. The dark side surged within him, a tempest of power and anger, ready to be unleashed. This was Maul's chance to write the final chapter in the saga of his tormentor, and he would not falter. So soon after, Maul and his forces stood in front of the door to Sidious's office, and then they walked in. And soon enough, they found the leader of the Republic staring out the window in his office, his gaze directed towards the battle that was unfolding outside. And then, without even turning around, Sidious spoke. "Lord Maul," he began, his voice calm. "I do not recall ordering such an action from you," he said. Maul's entrance was as dramatic as the turbulent thoughts racing through his mind. "Your orders no longer bind me, Sidious," Maul declared, his voice a mix of defiance and hatred. "This is where your reign ends." Hearing this, Sidious turned, slowly, with a sinister smile playing across his lips, the calm before the storm. "So, you believe you can undo me, Lord Maul?" "Spare me your taunts," Maul spat. "I stand here not as your apprentice, but as your executioner." Sidious's laughter filled the room. "Executioner? A bold claim, but remember, it was I who taught you everything you know about the dark side. Yet, I did not teach you everything I know, Lord Maul," Sidious said. As Sidious's words hung in the air, a sense of unease began to take hold of Maul. The realization that he was about to engage in a battle that could very well be his last was sobering. Yet, the burning desire for vengeance pushed any fear Maul had into the back of his mind. As Maul faced down Sidious, the ominous hum of the darksaber filled the chamber. Sidious, with his characteristic unsettling calm, appraised Maul and his chosen weapon, the darksaber, symbolizing Maul's claim to power beyond the Sith, a defiance against the very order Sidious represented. "The darksaber, a relic of conquest and authority," Sidious mused, his voice dripping with disdain. "But does it have the strength to challenge me, Maul?" Hearing this, Maul's grip on the darksaber tightened, a mix of anger and resolve flashing in his eyes. The moment was fraught with the gravity of his journey, a path marked by betrayal, resilience, and a relentless pursuit of power. Yet, as Sidious's astounding words echoed in the spacious chamber, a realization dawned on Maul. The true essence of their conflict wasn't about the symbols of power they wielded, but the mastery of the dark side itself, the very teachings Sidious had imparted to him. And so, acknowledging the need for a weapon that truly represented his evolution and the dark teachings that had shaped him, Maul deactivated the darksaber, securing it at his side, and in its place, Maul summoned a new double-bladed lightsaber. "This is the instrument of your undoing, Sidious." Savage, standing a silent vigil beside Maul, ignited his own lightsaber in solidarity with Maul. Sidious observed the scene before him, his interest piqued by the display of defiance and unity. A new creation and a bond of blood and darkness. Sidious acknowledged, his gaze shifting between Maul and Savage. "Very well, let us see if the student and his kin can surpass the master," Sidious said. Following this, Sidious raised his right arm, and corresponding to the movements of Sidious's arms, all of the Mandalorian commandos that were with Maul and Savage began rising into the air, until moments later, all of their necks snapped when Sidious closed his fist. Following this, Sidious let go of their bodies, and all the Mandalorian commandos fell to the ground, dead. Isolated now, with only Sidious, Maul, and Savage remaining, the atmosphere tensed to a near breaking point. "Now," Sidious intoned, his voice cold and calculating, "we are free from interruptions. Let us conclude this long overdue lesson, Lord Maul. Maul and Savage then exchanged a brief glance, an unspoken agreement passing between them. Following this, Maul with his new double-wheel lightsaber ignited, moved with precision and speed honed by years of training and battle. Savage, wielding his own twin-bladed lightsaber with brute strength, complemented Maul's technique with sheer force, creating a formidable assault against Sidious. Sidious, for his part, welcomed their challenge with a twisted sense of anticipation. His own lightsaber came to life. The clash of lightsabers filled the chamber with a deadly light show, the sound of energy meeting energy punctuating the air. The battle was intense, with Maul and Savage coordinating their attacks to break through Sidious's defenses. Maul's strategy was clear: to use Savage's strength to create openings, then exploit them with his own deadly precision. But Sidious was no ordinary opponent. His mastery of the dark side allowed him to anticipate and counter their moves, pushing them back with powerful surges of the Force. As the battle progressed, it became evident that Sidious was simply testing them, drawing out the fight to savor his eventual victory. Yet, Maul and Savage refused to yield. Their attacks grew more desperate, more aggressive as they sought to overwhelm Sidious's defenses. In a crucial moment, as Savage launched a powerful overhead strike, Sidious sidestepped with supernatural speed. Savage, overextending from his mighty swing, found himself exposed, and Sidious seized the moment. His blade found its mark, slicing with precision through Savage's defenses and into his chest. The hulking figure of Opress faltered, his saber slipping from his grasp as Sidious's lightsaber cut deep, a fatal strike that would extinguish the brute's life. Maul, witnessing the fall of his kin, felt a surge of grief and fury. With Savage's end, Maul's ties to his past persevered, fueling a wrath that burned with the intensity of a star-going supernova. Maul attacked with renewed vigor, his twin blades spinning in a mesmerizing dance of death. Sidious met Maul with equal ferocity. Their duel was a tempest, and Maul, at its eye, moved with a singular purpose: to avenge Savage and end Darth Sidious. But as the duel reached its zenith, Sidious unleashed his full might, his eyes glowing yellow with the power of the dark side. With a snarl of contempt, he thrust his hands forward, sending arcs of lightning towards Maul. The former apprentice, caught in a torrent of Sidious's fury, convulsed as the electric tendrils enveloped him. Maul's scream pierced the chamber as the electricity coursed through his body, searing flesh and spirit alike. He fought to remain conscious, to keep standing, but the power was overwhelming. But as Maul's body began to succumb, the sound of boots echoed in the corridor outside. Sidious, momentarily distracted by the sound of approaching footsteps, shifted his focus away from the defeated Maul, causing Maul to collapse onto the floor, his body scorched and trembling from the assault. Outside the office, the Jedi Masters Mace Windu, Yoda, Ki-Adi-Mundi, Obi Wan Kenobi, Shakti, and Anakin Skywalker prepared to confront the darkness they had come to vanquish. Their presence was a testament to the gravity of the situation, a unified front against the shadow that had loomed over the galaxy for far too long. Sidious, however, sensing the identities of those who had approached, allowed himself a thin smile. He knew this moment was inevitable, a culmination of years of manipulation and deceit. The final act was about to begin. As the doors to his office burst open, Sidious turned to face the Jedi, his posture embodying the calm before a storm. The Jedi entered, lightsabers drawn, their expressions a mix of determination and caution. And if any doubt remained in anyone's mind if Palpatine was truly Sidious, the sights of the dead Savage Opress, the barely alive Maul, and the crimson saber Palpatine held in his grip put all those suspicions to rest. So Sidious, standing amidst the remnants of his confrontation with Maul, turned to the Jedi and said the following: "Master Yoda, to what do I owe the honor of this unexpected visit?" Yoda, his gaze unwavering, replied, "Know your true nature, we do. Surrender, you must." The smirk on Sidious's face widened as he surveyed the Jedi before him. "Accusations most grave, Master Yoda." Mace Windu then stepped forward, his lightsaber humming with a dangerous glow. "Your manipulations end now, Chancellor. Surrender, and the Senate will decide your fate." "I am the Senate," Palpatine declared in a malicious tone. Anakin, silent until now, struggled internally. The Chancellor had been a mentor, a friend, but the evidence and the actions of the man standing before him were irrefutable. Yet his voice, when he finally spoke, was conflicted. "Chancellor, if there's any truth to what they say, you must stand down." Sidious's gaze then shifted to Anakin, a gleam of interest in his eyes. "Ah, Anakin, your loyalty is touching, but misplaced. The Jedi have become too powerful, too entrenched. They fear the power I represent, a power you too could wield if you so choose." Hearing this, Mace Windu again spoke up. "This ends now, Chancellor," Windu declared, his voice echoing with authority. "Stand down, or we will be forced to take you down." Palpatine's response to this was a sinister grin. "It's treason then," he hissed. And then, in a swift, fluid motion that belied his apparent age, Palpatine unleashed a powerful, forced push, a wave of dark energy emanating from his very being. The Jedi Masters, caught off guard by the sudden display of power, were hurtled backwards, crashing into the wall behind them with a force that knocked the breath out of their lungs. In the brief moment of chaos and disorientation that followed, Palpatine seized his opportunity. His hand darted to a concealed button on his desk, pressing it with calculated ease. The action triggered a galaxy-wide transmission from the Chancellor's office, a pre-recorded message, a sinister order that had laid dormant until this pivotal moment. Execute Order 66. This was the transmission Palpatine sent out to the galaxy, to every single clone. And upon receiving this transmission across the galaxy, clone troopers turned on their Jedi commanders who were leading them in the battle against the Mandalorians, which by the way was still going on in the outer rim of the galaxy. Maul couldn't pull all of his forces to Coruscant without alerting Sidious, so many Jedi and many Mandalorians were in the outer rim, and as soon as Order 66 was executed, the Jedi were fighting both clones and Mandalorians, the Mandalorians were fighting both Jedi and clones, and the clones were fighting both Mandalorians and Jedi. So this was the situation that unfolded upon the execution of this order. But as the Jedi in Palpatine's office processed the gravity of what was happening, Palpatine seized the moment to make his escape. With a burst of dark energy, Sidious broke the window in his office and leapt out. Below, a Republic shuttle, filled with clones which Palpatine had sensed approaching, moved to intercept him. The Sith Lord's timing was impeccable. His fall was broken by the shuttle into which he landed. The clones aboard the shuttle, already under the influence of Order 66, recognized him not as Palpatine but as Lord Sidious now. They welcomed him without question. Their loyalty to the Republic and the Jedi now superseded by the programming that compelled them to obey the Sith Lord's every command. And so the shuttle escaped with Sidious. And back at the Chancellor's office, the Jedi Master stood alongside a defeated Maul, utterly confused. So what would happen now? Well, that would be discussed in the next part of this series, titled, What If Maul Attacked Coruscant? But before you leave, if you want to support the channel on Patreon, do check it out, link is in the description, where for $1 or more a month you can get early access to videos and access to exclusive content that wouldn't be seen on the main channel for months. Anyways, goodbye, have a good day and stay hydrated.